What if I told you that one single night could change your life forever? That a brief encounter with the unseen could make you question everything you know about the world? You might not believe in supernatural entities, but what if they believe in you? This is not just a story, it's a warning, a true account of a man who came face to face with something so terrifying, so unexplainable, that even the strongest believers were left in shock. Some say jinn are just myths, old stories meant to scare children and keep them from wandering into the dark. But myths don't scratch at your walls at night. Myths don't whisper your name when you're alone. Myths don't stare at you from the shadows, waiting for you to notice them. But Ahmed did. And what happened to him is proof that the world of the unseen is far more real than we can ever imagine. He was a scholar, a man of reason, logic, and faith. Yet, one single mistake, a few whispered words spoken in ignorance, was enough to invite something into his life that he could never escape. A force so powerful that even the holiest words barely held it back. Stay with us till the end, because what you're about to hear is not just a story, it's a warning. And if you think you're safe, think again, because sometimes they're already watching. It was a cold winter night in an old village on the outskirts of Medina. The wind howled through the empty streets, carrying whispers that seemed almost alive. The sky was moonless, the darkness stretched endlessly, and in the distance, a stray dog howled, a sound that sent shivers down the spine of anyone who heard it. Inside a small, dimly lit house, Ahmed, a young scholar in his late 20s, sat alone, absorbed in an old Islamic manuscript. He had always been fascinated by ancient texts, by the secrets hidden in old scriptures. That night, he had found something peculiar, a handwritten note at the back of the book. The ink was faded, the Arabic letters shaky, as if written in fear. "Do not recite these words after midnight, for they listen." Ahmed smirked. Superstition, he thought. The modern mind does not fear such things. So with a sense of curiosity, he read the words aloud. And that was his first mistake. The candle on his desk flickered violently, its flame stretching unnaturally high before extinguishing completely. The room plunged into darkness. Ahmed's heart pounded. He reached for his phone's flashlight, but before he could turn it on, he heard it. A whisper, right next to his ear. Ahmed. His blood ran cold. The air around him became thick, suffocating. The walls seemed to close in. His eyes darted across the room, searching, but there was nothing, just shadows stretching unnaturally in the corners. Then the pages of his book started flipping on their own, slowly at first, then faster, as if an invisible force was impatient. The candle suddenly reignited, but this time the flame was black. Ahmed tried to move, but his body felt frozen. His muscles locked, his breathing became shallow, and then the voice returned. But this time it came from inside him. "You should not have called upon us." Ahmed's body stiffened, his muscles locking as if invisible chains had wrapped around him. A sharp, searing pain shot through his chest, not a stabbing pain, but a tearing one, like unseen claws were ripping at his very soul. His breath hitched, his throat tightening as an icy force wrapped around his spine, making his entire body tremble uncontrollably. His hands twitched, then jerked violently. He was no longer in control. His fingers twisted at unnatural angles, bending back so far they should have broken, but they didn't. Instead, his arms contorted in ways no human body should move, his shoulders snapping into odd positions, his spine arching so sharply it looked as if he might break in half. Then his head jerked back violently. His mouth opened wide, too wide, as if something inside him was trying to crawl out. The scream that erupted from his lips was not his own. It was deep, guttural, ancient, a monstrous sound that did not belong in this world. It echoed through the room, shaking the walls, making the air heavy with an unnatural presence. His gaze darted to the mirror across the room, but what he saw made his blood run cold. His reflection was no longer his own. The face staring back at him had hollow, empty sockets where his eyes should have been. A darkness swirled within them, endless and consuming, like a void that led straight to the unknown. But worse than that, it was smiling, grinning. The mouth curled unnaturally wide, revealing jagged, shadowed teeth, as if his reflection was delighted to finally be in control. Then his lips moved, but he wasn't the one speaking. The voice that came out was distorted, layered, like multiple entities speaking at once. The words were in a language he did not understand, ancient and heavy, vibrating in the air with a power that made his ears ring. Every syllable felt like a command, a curse, an invocation of something far more sinister than he could comprehend. His body convulsed violently. His veins, once hidden beneath his skin, began to darken, turning black, spreading like ink through his flesh. His muscles spasmed as an unbearable cold crept into his bones, numbing him from the inside out. Something was inside him, something ancient, something that had been waiting for a fool like him to open the door. He tried to fight, to take back control, but it was too late. Ahmed was no longer alone in his own body. Possession is real. It is not just a myth, not just an old tale whispered to children to keep them from wandering into the night. The Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, warned us about the dangers of Jinn, beings created from smokeless fire, invisible yet ever present, lurking in the places we dare not go. They inhabit abandoned houses, graveyards, and empty deserts, places where human presence fades and their world takes over. Some jinn live among us without causing harm. They watch, they whisper, they remain unseen. But others, they hunger. They are drawn to darkness, not just the absence of light, but the absence of protection. The vulnerable, the weak in faith, those who stray too far from the remembrance of Allah, these are the ones they seek. Jinn can enter a person for many reasons. Some through black magic, summoned by those who practice forbidden arts, binding them to curses that can haunt generations. Others through envy, through the evil eye, when jealousy festers like a disease and invites the unseen to take hold. But sometimes possession is not caused by malice. Sometimes a person unknowingly invites them, a whisper spoken at the wrong time, a name called out in the darkness, a challenge made in arrogance, or reciting forbidden words without knowing their meaning. He thought he was reading mere text, just ink on paper, old words written centuries ago. But words have power. Some are prayers, some are curses, and some are invitations. He had unknowingly called upon them. The moment his voice carried those ancient words into the silent night, something answered. The air around him had shifted. The candlelight had flickered. The shadows had grown darker, stretching unnaturally, moving when nothing should have stirred. Because he was no longer alone. Once a jinn is called, it does not leave easily. It attaches itself, clings to the one who summoned it like a parasite, feeding off their fear, their doubt, their very soul. For some, possession is immediate, violent, uncontrollable, a complete takeover of body and mind. But for others, it is slow, creeping, a whisper in the night, a shadow just out of sight, a presence that lingers, unseen but always felt. Ahmed had made a mistake, and now he would have to fight for his soul, and that was Ahmed's mistake. His family found him hours later, hunched in the corner, his body shaking violently. His mother screamed. His father, though terrified, did not waste a moment. He called the local imam. When the imam arrived, he immediately sensed it. The air was heavy, charged with something dark. He began reciting Ayatul Kursi, the most powerful verse from the Quran. The reaction was immediate. Ahmed's body convulsed, his mouth foaming. His voice, no, the voice inside him, screamed in agony. "Stop! You are burning me." But the imam did not stop. He placed his hand on Ahmed's forehead and recited verses from Surah Al-Baqarah. The walls shook, the windows rattled, and for a moment it felt like something inhuman was clawing at the room, trying to escape. And then silence. The room grew still. Ahmed collapsed. The blackness in his veins faded. His breathing slowed. The world of the unseen is closer than you think. Many people, out of curiosity, engage in practices that invite jinn into their lives, playing with Ouija boards, calling upon spirits, or even visiting haunted places at night. But remember, once a jinn enters your life, it does not leave easily. If you ever feel an unexplained presence, if you hear whispers when no one is there, if shadows move when they shouldn't, recite the Quran. Seek refuge in Allah, because sometimes curiosity is the gateway to something far more terrifying than you can ever imagine. If this story sent chills down your spine and left you questioning what lurks beyond the veil of our world, then subscribe to Horror Creation, your gateway to true, bone-chilling tales that reveal the hidden horrors of the unseen. But be warned, these stories are not just fiction. They are drawn from real encounters, ancient warnings, and whispers of the supernatural that have haunted generations. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode, because sometimes hearing these stories is the only way to protect yourself from the unknown. And now, it's your turn. Have you ever felt an unexplained presence watching you? Heard a voice call your name when no one was there? Or experienced something so terrifying that you were too afraid to speak about it? Share your story in the comments, if you dare. But remember, not all who listen remain silent. You never know who or what might be watching.